FDA term is that we're a cranial stimulator. More importantly, what we do is we non-invasively stimulate the brain's ability to regulate itself. The subject that we're talking about today is something that I've spent the last year investigating, and I find it very interesting that we're all in agreement about addiction, substance abuse, and other related situations, that they're a brain-based disease. In fact, there's some published material about that specific statement. And I think that the conversation is just beginning there. So now how does Nexalin technology fit into that conversation? So when our clients come to us and they're suffering from an addiction, they've obviously been out there on some form of a substance, and this is what we would call toxic trauma to the brain. And the disease manifests by the structures of the brain that are in charge of balancing and regulating its chemical atmosphere, or its neurotransmitters, which is going to relate to cravings and the ability to handle the stressors of life. That Nexalin is able to come in and actually reset those areas of the brain that have been traumatized from the addiction. Really, the only thing that we're doing for the brain today, or at least the majority of the treatment centers, there are some that have learned about how to treat these brain irregularities, but the majority of them do not address the brain other than through abstinence, food, sleep, and some behavior support. But going back to my point, the area of the brain that's traumatized from the actual ingestion of the chemicals is not recovering in a 30-day period. In fact, there's quite a bit of science that demonstrates that the areas of the brain that are traumatized from an addiction sometimes can take 6 months to as much as 18 months to recover. This is why a patient that's in their first 6 months of sobriety, when you have a conversation with them, you can identify that they're in early sobriety because of the way that their mind is still processing the addiction and the struggle that they're having with the cravings, the sleep disorders, the anxiety, the stress, etc. So therefore, we have developed a frequency, and this frequency will actually talk to the brain in its native language, if you will. It stimulates the area of the brain that is traumatized. And by stimulating that area of the brain, we can actually reset that trauma from the ingestion of the chemicals in 3 to 7 days. And when you reset that area of the brain, we're now offering a brain-based treatment, or what we would call brain-based recovery. And what we see and what the patients report is that within 10 days, the cravings that they have never been able to handle in a comfortable manner almost diminish completely. Because as we know, the science behind the cravings is an imbalance, a massive imbalance, normally associated with dopamine, serotonin, and some of the other neurotransmitters. What Nexalin technology will do is, in a natural, non-invasive way, without any drugs, it will stimulate the brain's ability to regulate itself, as I mentioned, in 3 to 7 treatments. And that is the beauty of Nexalin. So now we can truly treat the brain in an addictive situation. Whereas before, as I mentioned, all we had was really abstinence in the behavior model. Now we can actually correct the physiology associated with the symptoms, because there's always an underlying physiology. But basically what we're doing is we take a client on day one, and when we start treating them with Nexalin, day one of sobriety, and we start treating them with Nexalin technology, it's almost as if we pick them up and put them out at the 9-month mark from a physiology standpoint, because we are literally resetting the structure of the brain that is dysregulated and cannot promote balance or homeostasis. And when you reset that midbrain, you get an immediate adjustments in your neurotransmitters, which then will reduce cravings, enhance sleep, and offer the ability to the patient to handle the day-to-day stressors of a recovered life.